Welcome to Coruzant Technologies, home of the Digital Executive Podcast.
Welcome to the Digital Executive. Today's guest is Bob Bowden. Bob Bowden is the founder and CEO of Vidafair, a pay-per-stream video platform. He is also the founder and former executive director of Choice Media, the leading school choice media group. He has been a television producer, reporter, and commentator for PBS and Bloomberg Television. He also appeared as a recurring character in satirical news sketches for the Onion News Network. The Cartel, Bowden's documentary, reveals the nature and extent of corruption in public education. The film won a dozen film festival awards. Well, good afternoon, Bob. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brian. Great to be here.
Absolutely. I love this. I appreciate you doing a podcast with me today, or this evening rather, in the same time zone. I'm generally traversing the globe, a lot of North America, but thank you again. And Bob, jumping into your first question, Vidafair offers a unique pay-per-stream model for video content creators. What inspired you to create a platform that diverges from the traditional subscription models, and how has this approach been received by both creators and consumers?
Well, what inspired me was the fact that I hate subscribing to subscribing to anything actually, but particularly content. I don't think I'm alone in that regard. People have so many subscriptions these days that you often forget what you're subscribed to. In fact, just today, I was looking over a credit card receipt and I realized I had been paying for I guess I won't name it. All right, I will name it. It's ESPN Plus. I didn't even know that I had a subscription for that. Who knows how many months I had been paying for this. And I went through the laborious process to try to figure out how to cancel it. By the way, the trick is if you just cancel your account, the subscription remains. You actually have to unsubscribe before you cancel your account. So they make that fairly tricky. So experiences like that, the simple forgetting to unsubscribe to services left me feeling like there is enormous, what we'd like to call subscription fatigue, which is kind of a hashtag that's taken on something of a life of its own. People are tired of subscribing to content. And yet at the same time, if there's a creator or an artist or a filmmaker or a comedian or a music video producer, band or musical artist that they want to support, we found people are actually quite willing to spend a buck or two in that direction toward the artist, not just to anybody, but if it's someone they want to support, they'll be quite willing to do that if it's not a subscription paradigm. If it's either a one-off pay-per-view type rental of content, or if you do it through what we call our grain tokens, which is a way to give discounts to volume renters of videos. So the same way they think of a subscription as a way to have a discount, I can subscribe and watch tons of content and only pay that one fee. Well, we have a discount model that we call our grain tokens, where people just basically buy a package of grains and it spreads out the financial transaction cost over a whole bunch of rentals. And that way we can offer them discounts that make it cheaper than the pure just pay-per-view one-off method. But nevertheless, it's a way to support the artists you like without being asked to subscribe. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And, the first thing I picked up on was your pain point. These subscriptions, gosh, they can be so convoluted, or you forget about them. And before you know it, you've spent hundreds or thousands of dollars that you've thrown down the drain. No, but I really do.
Crazy.
It is crazy.
When we were younger, there was a common thing with gym memberships, right? Like there's this cliche of the person, they sign up for the gym and they go 3 times and then they end up paying for a whole year or something before they're allowed to quit the gym subscription. It's often, not always, but often subscriptions are a way, I think, to charge people for services they don't use.
Absolutely. And we know that with Planet Fitness, there are others like that, it's $10, I'll forget about it. I never go to the gym anyway. And 3 years down the road, you've invested, $400 into that. But
sure.
Appreciate that.
At least with the gym membership, there's some possibility that you'll remember, someone will ask you about the gym, or you'll talk to a friend who went to the gym that day, and oftentimes with these content subscriptions, it just never comes up, and it's a kind of coincidence. This happened today, Brian. I was actually just saying, I had one of those credit card situations where, somehow there was some sort of charge I'd never heard of, and the credit card company sent me a new credit card number. So you end up kind of going over. Anyway, you get the idea, but I ended up seeing this charge to ESPN Plus. And yes, so it's to me, it's even more aggravating when it's a content subscription. So we wanted to create if you started with a blank sheet of paper and said, what would be the fairest way to design a platform where content creators of video content, whether they be filmmakers or comedians or whatever, what would be the fairest way to let them monetize their work? And they could offer a simple price. People could pay that one price. And basically that's what we created with Vidafair.
That's awesome. Thank you again. Out of a problem came a better solution. So, Bob, jumping into the next question, your documentary, The Cartel, exposed significant corruption in public education. How has your experience in investigative journalism and documentary filmmaking influenced the development and mission of Vidafair?
Well, I'm not sure if you've heard me talk about this before, but it actually had an immense impact. I could imagine a scenario where I would there are other things in my resume you could have brought up, and I would have said it had absolutely no effect on the creation of this Vidafair content monetization platform. But yes, in fact, I did a documentary film on corruption in public education. It did extremely well. I went on several national tours with the film. It had a national theatrical release, by the way. But before that, I went to film festivals all around the country. And what I would see at these film festivals, and my film was a combination of luck and also I'm proud of the work, but we did well enough that we got picked up by Warner Brothers for distribution, and we were eventually on Netflix for about 5 years. So our film really was that kind of lightning strikes, kind of, unlikely odds of a completely independent film being picked up for studio distribution. But I saw so many other works in these film festivals where no one had, if they were lucky, they got into one local film festival. All their friends and colleagues came to watch the film screen that one night. Some of these people might have spent half their life savings and 2 years, making some film that was their dream. And then after that one night, they all just went home and there was really nothing to do with it. At best, they could put it on YouTube. But I just thought to myself, going to these festivals, there ought to be a way for people to charge a fair price, maybe set their own creator fee, by the way, not be told what they should earn, but set their own fee, create upload it to some sort of service and tell at least their social media followers and their friends, and at least be able to put it on an email blast or websites. Here's a place you can rent my work. Nothing like that really existed, at least in the way that we've done it. I could get into kinds of services that would be the closest thing to a competitor that kind of exists, but there was really not a way to do that was fair, to use the term that we like to use with Vidafair. We have to say fairness is in our name. We didn't really think there was a platform that would be a fair way for people to monetize their work. So it was seeing that while touring the country with the Cartel documentary film I did. They gave me the idea, this is something that needs to exist.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm so glad that the good work you did in that documentary actually got some traction and people could see, and hopefully people are trying to make change for the better, especially in, the public school systems. Bob,
absolutely. Well, please, I could do an hour-long interview on just that subject if you wanted to, and in fact have done many over the years. So yeah, I share your passion on that.
Thank you. And Bob, we talked about this subscription fatigue a little bit already. It's a growing concern among consumers, but how does Vidafair address the issue? But more importantly, what trends do you foresee in the future of content consumption?
Well, I guess some of them are disturbing. The degree to which shorter and shorter content seems to be favored by, attention deficit disorder class is, I'm not a concern that I'm unique or original in pointing out. That does not tend to be the kind of content that is monetizable. That sort of short 10-second, TikTok, people dancing kind of clip, is not the type that people think of in terms of what they would pay for or what they would, what would be suitable for monetization. But it's certainly a trend in that direction. At the same time, though, Joe Rogan's podcast is usually 3 hours long. Please, if I'd have been asked to consult in advance of that, hey, Bob Bowden, you're, alleged media expert. What do you think about 3 hours for the length of? I would say like this is a terrible idea. I don't. No one's going to sit for more than an hour. You're crazy to make it 3 hour. And here it is gaining traction. So, I mean, I kind of to summarize those 2 points, which sound contradictory. It's that it's kind of the long tail of media is creating more and more different kinds of content that appeal to different kinds of thinkers and different kinds of the points of view people have. And so it's really kind of a richer and richer, set of content types that are available, not just now to be given away for free, but also monetizable through Vidafair. So I think, like in the monetization space, for example, what we started out with was mostly subscriptions, as we've talked about. You had services like HBO, which people could subscribe to. And then online versions came like Netflix, where and et cetera. And now even Patreon accounts are a subscription model, but it's a way people can monetize video that way. Separately, there's been advertiser-based monetization, as we all know, from television networks like NBC to something like YouTube, which is largely advertiser monetized when people, watch that way. Of course, that said, a creator on YouTube, if they're lucky and they're monetized, they'll get on average less than 0.2 of 1 penny per view. 0.18 cents per view is the average monetized YouTube video per view rate that people get paid. And that's if they have 1,000 subscribers and if they have at least 4,000 hours of viewing time, meaning they get monetized on YouTube. But nevertheless, that is an advertiser base. So the big picture is here. You have the subscription platforms that have existed. You have the advertiser monetization platforms that existed. You have new kinds of other ways, which are just donation monetization. There's like a Buy Me a Coffee is a platform you can just pay someone, or you can pay them through Venmo directly or through Cash App, et cetera. So you can that's another monetization model, which you'd have to acknowledge exists, just donation based. But we believe the sort of old school would be called pay-per-view, but also you could call it TVOD. But this idea of just paying for a particular piece of video, including the ability for micro-payment pricing. So pricing that could be in the pennies. But I say the ability for that because we still want our content creators to set their own fee. But the idea to pay one very small amount, but pay them for the service of watching their work, we think is kind of the fourth and more upcoming monetization model for this world that we're having of more and more people watching content, more and more people making content all the time.
Thank you. And we certainly see a shift, especially the last 10 years. Everything's been disrupted. That's been a big word in our vocabulary, obviously, but we see that models, trends in the market can change anything. So I appreciate your insights on where this is going. And Bob,
can I say one thing about that? Yeah. So that's another thing is eliminating gatekeepers has also been a trend, I think, writ large with the way the internet has allowed empowerment of ordinary people to make content, et cetera. So, Vidafair requires no agent. You need no manager in Hollywood or no agent. You need not have some sort of distributor agree with your work being worthy, et cetera. The idea is on our platform, you can go straight to your social media followers and say, here's my content. And if you want to support me, here's this tiny little price that you can pay to watch my work. And we think the idea of eliminating gatekeepers is a really powerful and in a way kind of an ethical thing to be involved with, because why should certain people be empowered to be the kind of idea police or the independent film police or the comedy police, et cetera? Seems to me that it's a healthier world when people can kind of go straight to their audience and not need that kind of approval. So that's another trend that the internet writ large, I think, has enabled, but we're also part of it ourselves.
Absolutely. Just like this platform, it's not only a Web 2 traditional based publication, but we're also built on Web 3, which is blockchain, DeFi, right? Power to the people. So I totally see you eye to eye there. And last question of the evening, Bob, which marketing techniques or strategies have worked best for you and why?
I've talked about this on a few other podcasts, but I'll try to do it as succinctly as possible. When we were first when Vidafair was new, we were trying to do things that almost like a big company would do. Like in my mind, I sort of thought, oh, well, people will accept us more if we kind of present ourselves like we're, like it's the Mad Men era in the early 1960s, and we'll have these advertisements that will look slick and look like we're a big company and look like we're polished and all that. And I think that it's actually opposite in this era. For example, we went to a trade show and got a big booth and hired a huge staff, and we had a breakout session in advance of the trade show, and at the conference, and we try to seem like we were some big established company. I don't think people are looking for that. It's been more effective for me to personally go and make videos on our Instagram or on our X or on our Facebook with me just talking with my face. Just, hey, I'm a guy, and this is a startup video streaming monetization platform, and here's how it works. And, give us feedback. And that sort of authenticity is kind of part of the social media era, I think, and people respond to it better than if you try to be something you're not.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. And I think with authenticity comes trust, comes credibility, and just it's a game changer for consumers, especially when you're trying to build a loyal fan base. So I appreciate that, Bob. And Bob, it was such a pleasure having you on this evening, and I look forward to speaking with you real soon.
Sure, Brian. Anytime. Appreciate it.
Bye for now.